The summer soccer excitement continues with the Copa America tournament kicking off this week, running alongside the Euros. And while Copa America is essentially the South American version of the Euros, there are limited countries in South America, and this often allows for other countries to join the tournament as well. And as such, we have several CONCACAF nations involved, and it's actually being hosted in the USA this year as well. In this video, we'll look at the odds for all the top contenders and long shots, break down a short breakdown of each team alongside each group, and make some picks for who can make the final and some good futures bets to make. Let's take a quick look at the odds here for every team. You can see no surprise here. Argentina being the favorites at plus 175. These odds over at Bet365. If we look at the top five next, Brazil plus 225, Uruguay plus 500, Mexico 11-1, Colombia 12-1, United States 12-1, and you can look all the way down that list to the long shots being Jamaica, Panama, and Bolivia coming in at way down there at 15,000 to 1 plus 15,000 odds. Let's move into Group A. Argentina, not surprising, massive favorites over the likes of Chile, Peru, and Canada. For Argentina, they're ranked first in the FIFA World Rankings. It's been a great year if you're an Argentinian soccer fan, with Alaves winning the 2021 Copas and the 2022 World Cup. Only Brazil and Chile have won back-to-back Copas this century, but Argentina do look to be at the height of their powers right now. Argentina lost to Brazil in the 2019 Copas, but then they went on a 36-game undefeated run, going on to win the World Cup. Shock 2-1 loss to Saudi Arabia ended that streak, but since they've won 14 straight until a 2-0 loss to Uruguay in November in World Cup qualifying. It was another rare blip, though, in the loss column for Argentina, as they've now won 5 straight games by a 12-2 combined score. Recently, they beat Ecuador 1-0 and Guatemala 4-1. A win over Ecuador is notable, since it's quite possibly that they will match up in the knockout round. In the World Cup qualifying for 2026, Argentina are tops in the CONMEBOL standings right now at 5-0-1. They've scored 8, they conceded just 2, and they have the best defensive record as well. Messi and Argentina should have every opportunity to, at bare minimum, reach the final again. Their path to get there is not very tough, and they only have 2 losses across their last 57 games. Moving on in this group, it's Chile, 42nd ranked in the world. Alexis Sanchez is still one of the standout players for Chile here, but now 35 and aging. He's on a team. His best days likely have been behind him. So too are the best days for Chile. Chile won the Copas in 2016, but since that time they've finished at best 4th in this tournament, and they've missed both World Cups. They lost 1-0 to Brazil in the quarterfinals of this tournament in 2021. Chile's current manager, Ricardo Gareca, who has previously taken Peru to the Copa America semifinals, so they'll be hoping he can spark La Roja to life here and make a similar run with Chile. But Chile doesn't look to be going anywhere too fast here. They're 8th in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying right now at just 1, 2, and 3. And they only have 3 goals scored across those 6 games. Since the start of 2023, they've had mixed form at 6, 3, and 4. Only 3 of those wins have come since October as well. They're 2, 1, and 3 of late, but their 3 friendlies in 2024 are a 3-0 win over Albania. That's in a Euros team. A 3-2 loss to France, and a 3-2 win over Paraguay. They're expected to fight with manager Gareca's old team Peru for 2nd place behind Argentina in Group A. And these teams will meet in round 1, match day 1 as well. Moving on to Peru, 32nd in the world. Peru lost to Brazil 1-0 in the semis in 2021 before losing in the 3rd place game to Colombia. Another nation still clinging to an aging star. We have 40-year-old Pablo Guerrera is back for another major tournament here with La Blanca. And after 2 semis in the Copas, coach Ricardo Gareca was sacked, with Peru failing to qualify for the World Cup, and was replaced by Jorge Frassati. Now with Chile, he'll see his old squad real soon in match day 1 of the Copas. But Peru has been woeful in World Cup qualifying. They're sitting bottom of the table right now in CONMEBOL at 0-2-4, and they've only scored 1 goal and conceded 8 in those games. Despite being awful in World Cup qualifying, their 2024 friendlies have been a little bit more positive. They have a 2-0 win over Nicaragua, 4-1 win over Dominican Republic, 0-0 draw with Paraguay, and a 1-0 win over El Salvador. Still, those are wins over generally weaker CONCACAF nations and a scoreless draw with a fellow CONMEBOL side. So Peru and Chile, it's probably one of those 2 going through, but it's really tough to split. Canada, 49th, round out this group. Canada lost all 3 games at the World Cup in 2022, and it's now a new regime with ex-New York Red Bull, RB Leipzig, and Leeds United coach Jesse Marsch taking over Canada's coaching job as recently as just last month in May. Canada warmed up with a 4-0 loss to Netherlands, though it was 0-0 at halftime, but rebounded after that with a 0-0 impressive draw with France this past weekend. But Canada is very much preparing to co-host World Cup 2026, and even listening to Jesse Marsch talk in some interviews, you can tell that that is what he's looking ahead to as he's just taken over this team and will be experimenting to see what he has to work with. Canada has just 3 wins in 11 games. Those are versus Cuba, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. The 3 wins prior to that are versus Panama, Honduras, and Curacao. There's certainly talent, though, on this Canadian team, with the likes of Alphonso Davies from Bayern Munich, Stephen Eustáquio from FC Porto, Ismail Kone on Watford, Tejan Buchanan on Inter Milan, Jonathan David on Lille as well. So they have several players playing in some of the top clubs. Expectations, though, not high for this Canadian team. Argentina obviously looks like the team that will advance. I really cannot pick between Chile and Peru. Even though saying the expectations are low with Canada, they will be playing on North American soil. Maybe this is just a homer, Canadian me. Let's go for a long shot. Canada to somehow pull an upset and be the second place team. I don't feel confident with it, but I'm not sure between Chile and Peru. So Argentina and Canada possibly be the 2 teams going through there. Let's move on to Group B. Mexico, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Jamaica. For Mexico, they're 14th in the world right now. They're 10-3-6 in their last 19 games, but they have just 3 wins in 9 and 1 in 4 coming into this tournament. They just lost 4-0 to Uruguay and 3-2 to Brazil. They do have a 1-0 win over Bolivia, 9th in World Cup qualifying, and also 3-2 over Colombia, and even a 2-0 loss to USA recently. So they may not be able to stack up alongside some of those top South American teams, or maybe not even some of the top teams in their own conference of late. They won the Gold Cup final last summer over Panama in July, but it's 4 wins in 12 games since, so they're not coming in great form. Those 12 games have produced a fair amount of goals, though. Mexican games have been a great overbet, averaging 3.33 goals per game of late. Ecuador, 31st in the world, went out of the quarterfinals, 3-0 to Argentina back in the 2021 Copa America. Ecuador sits top 5 in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying right now at 3-2-1. At 5th, Ecuador's record looks good coming in. They're 9-2-3 in their past 14 games after winning their past 2 friendlies, 3-1 and 2-1 over Bolivia and Honduras. They lost the 2 friendlies prior to that, but those were versus Argentina, 1-0, and Italy, 2-0, so no shame there. They do have 3 wins over that time, though, against Bolivia, which is not a top nation in South America. Betting Ecuador, both teams to score games, has not been a good bet of late, outside of those last 2 games where they just did cash that bet. The both teams to score no has gone 6-2. So too has bets on under 2.5, also going 6-2 of late. Also in this group, Venezuela, 54th in the FIFA rankings. It's been a bright start to World Cup qualifying for a Venezuela side. It's not usually up there in the top standings. They're 4th in CONMEBOL so far at 2-3-1, scoring 6 goals and only conceding 3. The under has gone 5-1 in those games. Venezuela's recent form, though, overall coming into the Copas is not great. They've not won in 5 games. They have just 2 goals scored in those 5 games, and their 2 friendlies this year were 0-0 with Guatemala and a 2-1 loss to Italy. In fact, they will come in fairly cold, as they've had no warm-up matches at all since March 24th, whereas many other teams have been playing a few games before the tournament this month. Betting the under has been the way to go for Venezuela games. Under 2.5 has gone 10-2 in their past 12. Next up, Jamaica, 55th in the FIFA rankings. The form guide will show Jamaica is 11-3-3, which looks good, but those wins have come versus much lower competition than they'll see at the Copa America tournament, with many wins in CONCACAF and versus lower-ranked Caribbean nations. Coming into the tournament, they've beaten Dominica 3-2, Dominican Republic 1-0, and Panama 1-0 in their past 3. Their 3 losses in that time have come versus some of the tougher CONCACAF nations in USA, Canada, and Mexico. But they have been good for a goal in most games, as they've scored in 18 of their last 21 games. They've kept clean sheets in 4 of their last 6 as well. I don't know if I see them advancing here, though. Let's go Ecuador and Mexico as the 2 likely teams to advance. There's a little bit better price on Ecuador. Mexico should have some good home crowd advantage here playing in North America. Surely there'll be plenty of Mexican fans in the stands. I think Ecuador has a little bit better price. Let's go Ecuador to be first, Mexico to be second. Moving on to Group C, Uruguay, USA, Panama, and Bolivia. 15th Uruguay are the favorites to win this group at -138 odds over at Bet365. They drew Colombia 0-0 in the quarterfinals in 2021, but they lost in PKs to go out of the tournament. 6 games in the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying right now. Uruguay is second, only behind Argentina. Their record is 4-1-1. They're the highest scorers in qualifying right now with 14 goals across 6 games, and no one else even Argentina has any more than 8. Uruguay's recent form is a bit spotty, though. They have drawn Basque Country 1-1. They lost 2-1 to Ivory Coast, and they drew Costa Rica 0-0 in 2024. But their final game was a 4-0 rout of Mexico earlier this month in June. So it's 1 win in 4, but if you look further back, they are 9-4-2 in their last 15. Now, failing to score versus Costa Rica is the only time they've not scored a goal in their last 15 games as well. Darwin Nunez is the player most expected to win the Golden Boot from Uruguay, not overall, but from Uruguay, and he just had a hat-trick versus Mexico on June 5th. So if you think Uruguay will go far, he certainly could be worth a bet in the Golden Boot bets as well. Uruguay will be expected to beat out USA for top spot in Group C as well. And speaking of USA will be 11th in the FIFA rankings right now. Who knows what you're going to get from USA? Last week they had their worst loss since 2016, losing 5-1 to Colombia. But then they turned around and they drew Brazil 1-1 on Wednesday. Still, they're 13-4-5 in their past 22, but they have just 2 wins in 6. And 1 needed PKs to get that win. The U.S. men's national team are now 5-8-6, win, draw, and loss under Greg Berhalter against teams ranked in the top 20 FIFA World Rankings. They'll certainly meet a few of those here in this tournament. Now, 4 of those 5 wins have all come against Mexico, and the U.S. men's national team's only win under Greg Berhalter against the top 20 team not named Mexico is Iran, who's 20th. Next up, Panama, 45th in the world. They made the Gold Cup final last summer versus Mexico, and they lost 1-0. Panama's recent form, though, since is 8-1-2. You go back further, and they're 12-2-3. That looks to be a great record coming into this tournament, and it certainly is, but you won't see many big names on that list of wins. They beat USA, though, in the Gold Cup semis, but they have recent losses to Mexico, 3-0, Jamaica, 1-0 in the Nations League to start the year, before 2-0 and 3-1 wins over smaller nations like Guyana and Montserrat. In those past 17 games, outside of the 3 losses where they were shut out, they did score in all of their other 14. And the most likely underdog in this group is Bolivia, the 85th ranked nation in the FIFA rankings right now. Bolivia will face an uphill battle to qualify into the knockout rounds. And in World Cup 2026 qualifying, they are 9th out of 10 teams in CONMEBOL at 1-0-5. They're outscored 14-4. And they have a -10 goal differential. That's the worst in the conference. Bolivia's recent form, though, overall is also poor reading, not just counting CONMEBOL qualifying. Recently, they've lost 3-0 to Colombia, 3-1 to Ecuador, 1-0 to Mexico in their recent friendlies, and they only have 3 wins going back across 22 of their last games across all competitions. They've conceded a goal in 19 of 22, multiple goals in 13 of 22, and they've been shut out in 12 of those 22 games. In that time, they've played 2 of their 3 fellow Group C contenders, losing 2-1 to Panama and 3-0 to Uruguay. This group looks pretty straightforward to me. It should be Uruguay followed by USA advancing. Let's move on to Group D, the final group here. There's 4 groups in Copa America, and it's Brazil favored at -250, Colombia +275, Paraguay 12-1, and Costa Rica 18-1. For Brazil, they're 5th in the world right now. It's been a shocking qualifying campaign for them in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying for 2026. In 6 games, they are just 2-1-3, sitting in the bottom half of the table in 6, which is not something you'd usually see from Brazil. Brazil do have a new head coach in Dorival Jr. from Sao Paulo, who took over as recently as January. Now, Brazil had been winless in 4 games at that time, but Dorival is still undefeated in 2024 friendlies so far. Those results have been a 1-0 win over England, 3-3 draw with Spain, 3-2 win over Mexico, and a 1-1 draw with USA. Those are decent results, but not enough to stop Brazil legend Ronaldinho from coming out this past week and saying this is the worst Brazil team that he has seen, and he won't even be watching this tournament. Since losing to Argentina in the 2021 Copa America, they had gone 17 straight games without defeat, but in their last 16 games, they're just 6, 3, and 7, so maybe he's not wrong. Still, Brazil will be expected to go deep into this tournament. They're expected to win this group and likely could meet Argentina in the final, but they will have stiff competition in this group, and that competition will come from 12th ranked Colombia. Colombia lost to eventual winners Argentina in the semifinals in the last tournament, but they did draw 1-1 in regulation and went on to lose in PKs. They went on to beat Peru 3-2 in the 3rd place game as well in the last tournament. Colombia are the only team in South America World Cup qualifying not to lose yet after 6 games. They're 3-3-0, and they sit third in the table. Colombia's recent form is some of the best of any team, though. In fact, it is the best of any team coming into this tournament. In their last 23 games, they're 18-5-0, undefeated. They've outscored their opponents 42-14. They've scored in all but 3 of those 23 games, and they've kept clean sheets in 14 of those as well. Now, if you go back even further, they have just 3 losses across their last 35 games. After beating Bolivia 3-0 and USA 5-1 in warm-up friendlies this week, they come in scorching hot, having won 8 straight by a combined score of 19-6. Next up in this group, it's Paraguay, 56th in the rankings. They drew Peru 3-3 in the quarters last tournament, but lost in PKs. In CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying, Paraguay has just 1 win in 6 games, and at 1, 2, and 3 are 7th out of 10 teams. The good news, they've only allowed 3 goals in those 6 games, but the bad news, they've scored only 1 goal themselves. Paraguay's recent form makes it hard to see them upsetting the odds and moving on. Their 2 friendlies within the past week saw them lose 3-0 to Chile and draw Peru 0-0. 2 teams also not in great form. The Albiroja are winless in 4, have 2 wins in 13, have been shut out in 10 of their last 13 games, and also in 4 straight games. In those 13 games, they've also scored just 5 goals. Paraguay may be third favorites in the group, but they're only slightly favored ahead of Costa Rica. They're in awful form, but they have played much higher-rated opponents in South America than Costa Rica has coming in. In reality, it really doesn't matter, as both of these teams are stuck behind Brazil and Colombia, and neither will be expected to advance against the 5th and 12th ranked nations in the world. And speaking of Costa Rica, well, they round out the group. Los Ticos, 52nd in the FIFA rankings. Changing of the guard here in net with Keylor Navas, retired now after 114 international matches for Costa Rica. Now, their recent form is decent, having beaten St. Kitts and Nevis and Granada 4-0 and 3-0 in recent CONCACAF World Cup qualifying matches. A 0-0 draw with Uruguay in a friendly will also be a confidence booster, and their only loss in 6 games came versus Argentina 3-1, making them 4-1-1 of late. But all 4 of those wins came in CONCACAF, and they also have recent losses near the end of 2023 versus Panama and UAE. Playing in a group alongside Brazil, Colombia, and Paraguay won't be easy. They're easily the 4th favorites to get out of this group. They likely will not. I'm going to go for an upset here. Obviously, Brazil is favored. Colombia comes in scorching hot, though. Brazil's not in great form. Let's go Colombia to top this group, with Brazil coming in 2nd place. Now that we've covered every team from every group, let's move on to the knockout round, look at some how the bracket could unfold, and some good bets to make for futures bets in Copa America 2024. If we look at the bracket here, with so few teams participating and only a few true power teams, you're usually pretty safe on betting Argentina or Brazil or both to make the final and one of them to win. If we look historically, Argentina has made the finals the most, 29 times of anybody, followed by Uruguay, 21 times, Brazil 20, Paraguay 8, Chile 6, Peru 3, and then Bolivia, Colombia, and Mexico all doing so twice. There's been 47 Copas won, 15 each by Argentina and Uruguay, 9 by Brazil, 2 by Paraguay, Chile, and Peru, and 1 each by Bolivia and Colombia. Uruguay actually topped Brazil in both of those all-time stats that we just looked at, but in the last 11 Copa Americas, Argentina has made the final 5 times, including 5 of the last 7, while winning once, and Brazil has made the final 7 times, winning 5 of those times. Uruguay has made the final just 3 times, winning twice, but not since 2011. Since that win, it was Chile in 2015 and 2016, Brazil in 2019, and Argentina in 2021. Outside of Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Uruguay, the only other nation to win since Paraguay in 1979 was Colombia in 2001. So let's look at how I see this bracket unfolding. Argentina, they should coast the final. They should easily win their group. To not win Group A would just be shocking. Whoever they meet in Group B, likely Mexico or Ecuador in the quarterfinals, should be another win. And then it will be a rematch with somebody from Group A that they likely already beat, so they should win again there in the semis and coast into the final. On the other side of the bracket, it's where there could be some more question marks, where there could be some chaos. I'm taking an upset and picking Colombia to win Group D. Surely Brazil could, though. That would mean if Colombia does win, they would likely play USA, a second-place team from Group C in the quarters, and then Uruguay or Brazil again in the semifinals. Not an easy path, but if they did come second and Brazil won, as the odds would suggest, they'll play Uruguay, also not easy, in the quarters, and then probably Brazil again. Winning the group would be a huge advantage, as they would get USA, and they just beat USA 5-1 recently in a friendly, and then they could possibly hope that Uruguay could beat out Brazil. Not that Uruguay would be an easy match either, but obviously avoiding playing Brazil twice would be ideal. I like Colombia as an outsider, long shot pick to win this final. They did lose to Argentina in PKs in the last tournament. They do have the toughest potential path, though, but they are one of the hottest teams in world football right now. We've seen Italy come in hot to the Euros, go on and win. We've seen Argentina come hot into the World Cup and go on to win. And this current streak for Colombia is a very comparable hot streak. And sometimes when a team just comes in and everything's clicking, they can roll all the way to the final. But no doubt, Argentina are favorites, and they should not have to expend too much energy to get there, as they have very easy path, and they still have likely the best player in the world in Messi. If we look at some best bets to make here, I have a few different options. Argentina and Uruguay to win their groups as a good parlay. Looks like a great bet to me. That would come in at about 1 plus 115 odds. Argentina, like we said, should be a slam dunk to win their group. Uruguay is also having a good World Cup qualifying, being second behind Argentina. I don't think any of the other three in this group have a chance, even USA, to upset Uruguay. It should be a lock for Argentina to reach the final. That's not going to pay off a lot, but at minus 133, there's worse bets out there to make than just assuming Argentina can get their path, just get to the final and not even win it. Argentina to win the final, though, still, they are the favored team. I can see them repeating a plus 175. It's not anything that exciting, but they are favorites. They're in great form. They could certainly win it as well. Colombia to simply reach the final, though, if you think Colombia can get there and they can pull some upsets, plus 550. Long shot bet, Colombia to win, plus 1,200. Interesting parlay piece. There's a lot of Colombia. I'm focusing on Colombia here a lot. Colombia to qualify from their group at minus 350. Obviously, you can't bet that alone, but it would be a great parlay piece to pair with another nation to possibly advance to win their group, or another nation to not advance and not make it into the knockout round as well. Whether you pair that with a Copas bet or another team in the Euros going on at the same time, I just don't see a scenario where Colombia does not get through as at least first or second. So pair that with something. Or if you want a long shot bet, Colombia to win group, they're with Group D at plus 275. So those are my futures bets and leans for the Copa America 2024. Before you make any of your Copas bets, if you're looking to boost your bankroll with some of the top sports betting bonuses this summer, then look no further, because Shred the Spread, this channel, has partnered with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert to bring you the top sportsbook bonuses you can receive from all of the best online sportsbooks in the industry. If you're shopping for the best sports betting odds and new customer promotions, be sure to help out the channel and use my link, signupexpert.com/shredthespread. Find the link in the comments of this video or the description. Click on that link and you can see all the best bonuses available in your region. And be sure to share all of your bets down there in the comments for Copa America. Any game bets, group winners, who you think is going to win the final or the Golden Boot, top scorer in this tournament. Share those down there in the comments, and best of luck this tournament.